right, we're here. This is the Do It Live, the 17th of December, 2022. I'm psyched to be running this show with Nick. Nick, how you doing right now?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much, Darrell. It's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's episode of Do It Live.
Yeah. So, want to give a little intro for you, Nick. I met you here in Autonomy. I got to have the privilege of doing some work on my course, Mental Emotional Kung Fu, with you over there. This season 2, I think we started. Got to work with you behind the scenes, Nick, on making all these amazing masterminds that are happening here for season 8 students and others going on, and working with the leadership here in Autonomy. Definitely consulting with you across these multiple ponds of liquid between us. I'm over here on the big island of Hawaii, and you're over there somewhere in that United Kingdom. And yeah, that's I know that you work from home, and you have aspirations for making a larger impact on the world, and still like touching into that. And anything you want to add to that intro, Nick?
No, you pretty much got it. That's absolutely correct. I've been participating in Autonomy now it's going to be coming up on 2 years. This is my 4th season, my 4th time around, and every season it just gets better and better. I think this season is the first time I met you, and as you mentioned, we started training together, and we were invited to become Autonomy leaders for this intake of students for season 8. And we trained up, and you shared your knowledge of masterminds with me, and I learned a lot and got my own mastermind group up and running. And it's just going from strength to strength here in Autonomy. So, and this is one of the things I love doing the most, hosting and co-hosting the Do It Live podcast. So absolutely thrilled to be part of your first time hosting, right?
This is totally my first Do It Live. Yeah. And
Wonderful.
just getting the off the cuff like advice, like, hey, not so polished, don't get this too organized ahead of time, getting
So
that.
to everyone
Yeah.
out there who's seeing you for the first time in the host's chair of Do It Live, I'll say a little bit about you as well. So Darrell Becker, you are the co-owner of ContentSafe.co, which is a video distribution platform serving alternative media producers by providing simultaneous publishing on many alt media platforms such as Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. And I might say as well, an extremely important service that you're providing at these times where saying the wrong things can have your livelihood rudely taken away from you if you're relying on big tech platforms such as the one we're broadcasting to right now, or Facebook and whatnot. So that's an excellent thing you got set up there. But as well as that, you've also got many other strings to your bow. You're a licensed acupuncturist, a holistic healthcare professional. As you mentioned, you're living in Hawaii, but I know that you consult for healthcare clients across the US and other countries, and you help people finding effective medical professionals and treatments to reverse chronic illnesses and injuries. You've got your own podcast, so you're not a stranger to hosting podcasts. You're just new to hosting this particular one. And that's notmedicaladvice.co, right? And
That's true.
so, yeah, anything else you'd like to add to that intro?
Yeah, I think it's good to know that I love working for you folks here in Autonomy, the folks who are generally the audience that's going on right here amongst all the squares of the Zoom call that I'm looking at. I love to work for anyone in this, expanded community, the people who actually watch the Do It Lives, the recordings, right? And I'm thinking, wow, the YouTube's really shadow banning this one, because there might be a lot more views going on than the YouTube counter is really showing for Do It Live. And that's something where, like, I think this is a show that really could use to get growing and have the entire library of it like navigated over to the alt media platforms like Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Iconic, brand new Tube, Band.tv, Gab.tv. There's all these platforms that you grow over there, and maybe you'll see the real numbers actually growing for who's really watching this. Because right now, I'm going to take a guess that the numbers here on YouTube are throttled. Like that there's actually probably more people watching this than the YouTube ticker is going to show. There's people who are like subscribed to it like I do, who don't get a notification, And so you
Well, a
really
case
just,
in
you
point
know,
as well would
yeah.
be Jay Dyer, who recently managed to hit 100,000 subscriptions on YouTube. That's taken him 10 years to do that. And in contrast, he managed to get to 35,000 subscribers in 1 year on Rockfin.
Right, right. So it's all in the platform, and obviously I don't suggest like leaving all the big tech platforms. I just suggest like, hey, go like an and also perspective, as someone taught me, not the either or perspective, you know. Someone, and that's, I'm saying like that's a lesson, and also something I'm hoping you guys all learn here in Autonomy. And I did start Autonomy in season 1, but I keep learning more each season as it goes. And me and Nick, we put our heads together for this one, trying to say, um, what's an overarching theme that we wanted to touch on. And what I got for putting our heads together was the ideas of the white pill and the black pill. That is the white pill of optimism, the black pill of pessimism. And just to juxtapose those two, put them together. Obviously, I wish for promoting the idea of optimism that would be more on brand for me and the type of message that I'm trying to spread, because I'm also the creator of mental emotional kung fu course. It's offered here to Autonomy students, and I promote the ideas of balancing the mental emotional terrain internally and making a bridge between oneself and others. I really love the idea of a deep well of optimism that I can always throw my bucket into it and pull some up and help someone else out with it. And then there's the idea of the black pill and pessimism. Nick, do you have any experience with that black pill and black pilled people?
Oh boy, do I have experience with the black pill. I mean, my whole background going back to being a child really was has been a sort of roller coaster ride of kind of riding the highs of happiness and joy and satisfaction, and then plunging into the depths of sort of depression and existential angst and despair. And it's been something that has come back and left me, and it's been a companion for many, many years. And only until sort of 2017 onwards, when I really started learning and diving into what causes these kind of feelings and what we can do about them, it's only been since then that things have leveled out and that I've managed to find a much more stable ground to enjoy life from. But the black pill, it is out there. There are many, many people offering that, making that offer, and it comes in so many different ways, shapes, and forms that sometimes you don't even realize it's the black pill when you're taking it in. So I think this is a vital topic and theme to cover, and I'm looking forward to exploring it.
Me too. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of grateful that in general, I've tried not to engage too much in a pessimistic attitude. And but the thing, of course, is like having, my job is to serve people, whoever shows up. And people who are showing up, especially with healthcare problems, or more nowadays, as I do a lot more counseling work, I do a lot more one-on-one work to really help people get a big breakthrough and a change in their perspective. They're coming to me with some serious pessimistic attitude. So I'm going to face that in my paid life. But what I try to make sure is that, okay, that could be in my paid life, but what about my unpaid life? How much of that do I want in my actual recreational time life? And that was a useful thing to like focus on. So I've now really limited down the number of people that I spend time with who really have that low vibe, pessimistic attitude. And I think we had an idea or a so-called plan of the show to like touch on that later on. But yeah, I mean, obviously we all went through World War COVID, the scamdemic, this interesting idea that, everything needed to be shut down. And there was huge impact on people that I think really ramped up the black pill of pessimism more recently. But just having been around the alternative research community in general, so-called conspiracy theorists, for the last 20 years now, 9/11 moving forward, I would say, I see a lot of people, they just really love the idea of being right and certain that their conclusions are accurate and correct. They love that certainty. In this case, the certainty that everything is going to shit, that everything sucks, that things are going to suck worse, that the ruling class is going to destroy us all. And I think that I would promote a better attitude than that. I would promote something that's a little bit more optimistic, which is that our actual thoughts and actions are creating the reality around us. That's an optimistic version of it. But for seeing, like we were talking about this, Nick, but ahead of time with the show, moving forward into like how to solve for optimism and increasing optimism. I think like we had this cool idea, like, well, what if we just touch into the ingredients of pessimism, and I'll get to my ingredients for making optimism later in the show, but just to look at it, I loved the touching on mass formation as via the lens of Matthias Desmet. I found that his concept was pretty unique. It was touching on these four components that aren't in the video that we're going to show, but like these four ingredients that seem to create this what is it, a radicalization, being a complete intolerance of the out group, and cruelty against dissident voices. That's that type of what people call the non-player characters, the NPCs, the people who really loved the helplessness aspect and victim mentality of this recent scamdemic whole drama that was unfolded. They love to have that because and they also love the groupthink part of it. And it was created by these four parts called isolation, which everyone knows how that one played out, where people was, stay in your homes, 2 weeks to slow the spread, right? 2 weeks became a lot more than 2 weeks. And then a connection to a pointlessness and meaninglessness of life, which people already were experiencing for decades with engaging in jobs that made money that weren't connected to meaningful, purposeful existence. I know that's the opposite of here of autonomy, where we're definitely all trying to promote an idea that make your livelihood doing things for money and like exchanging units of value and value for clients in a way that it does give meaning and purpose to your life, that you're making things better in alignment with your personal mission. And that would require that you have a personal mission. So all these poor missionless bastards out there is what I love to call them, Nick. They just have no mission in their life. They have no meaning and purpose. And that leads to the number 3, a free-floating state of anxiety. This anxiety that obviously we saw people, I think I know of people who actually were so afraid of a virus that based upon these news flashes going on, that they dipped their shoes in chlorine bleach in order to sort of, before entering the home, as an attempt to try to, I have another friend who sprayed everything that he bought from the store with Lysol. And lo and behold, start feeling sick because he's spraying everything with Lysol, which is obviously toxic, Look it up at the environmental working group, ewg.org. Look up Lysol and understand what it does to you. And from a toxicological standpoint, there's a resource. And finally, then we had step 4, free-floating frustration and aggression. And that's that type of group think where the people who were pro-mask and pro-vaccine and pro-lockdown and pro-big media, pro-big pharma, pro-big government, we're all somehow walking in lockstep to move forward to say, well, this is our in-group, and we're frustrated with the anti-vaxxers, and we're aggressive against them, and we want to cancel them. We want to promote the idea that people who have dangerous speech, I just got to do a show called Dangerous Speech over on rebunked.news, that people who are saying things that are so-called misinformation or dangerous need to be punished, canceled, removed. They need to be censored. That censorship is good. So this is called like the whole George Orwell thing. So those are the 4 main concepts. And I know we had like some little bit of we were going to go into a clip, but I want to hear your thoughts, Nick, on like when you heard this, what did you think? This idea.
Yeah, it made so much sense. The idea of mass formation laid out in these 4 different parts, it made a lot of sense particularly with what I've been learning since joining Autonomy, and listening to Grand Theft World, following the work of James Corbett, Jay Dyer, a lot of people who go into the books and the history of the last 100 years. When I got this model of mass formation, then I saw what had been in uh, in effect and had been happening for 100 years or more. You can see that these things didn't suddenly happen at the beginning of 2020. They've been building up and building up. Like you mentioned, the pointlessness from the jobs and the meaninglessness from the jobs. And you mentioned the personal mission, and the phrase that came to me recently through a good friend of mine was soul mission. What is the mission of your soul? What is your soul's kind of purpose? Finding that out, or at least exploring that concept and trying to find something that fits it, is so important to human beings. I think most of us agree that we all have souls, and that there's nothing more valuable than having a purpose and a mission in life, and figuring out what that is. But schooling doesn't help us to do that. My first job was working in a bakery. I had a paper round. Then I was working behind a bar. Then I was a teacher for a little while. All these things are fine. They're all well and good, but in the structures that have been built, that we've inherited, that have been kind of constructed around us, that we have had no say in really how they work. These structures are not built to give us purpose and meaning in life. And so then we moved on to the free floating anxiety. And we were talking a little bit before we went on air about things like climate change. The climate is wrecked, and everything is going to heat up, and everyone's going to burn and explode and die in a flaming bowl. And this is what's being taught to young children now. This is what you get in schools. And then if you're, depending on what race you are, you might get a nice dose of kind of, oh, you're privileged and life's easier for you, and therefore you need to step back a little bit and feel ashamed and guilty for the things that your ancestors did to this group over here. So a lot of very negative messaging, a lot of the mainstream message is: be scared, be fearful, be anxious, bad things are going to happen, nuclear bombs are going to go off. And so it's no surprise that this anxiety is building up, and it's free floating. People don't know what's causing it, and they don't know where to direct it, and how to discharge it, how to handle it. And then you get to part 4, which is like, okay, I'm going to tell you what the problem is and where all this anxiety is coming from. It's that group over there. And like you mentioned, instead of people looking at going, well, hang on a minute, maybe it's that group. No, it's not us, it's them. And this is when terrible things start to happen, according to the theory. So yes, hearing about this made so much sense to me. It made sense of historical events. It made sense of current events. And it was a really powerful framework and lens through which to view what's going on in the world.
Yeah. And that, I think it's really good to hear. It's really good to hear mass formation in Matthias Desmet's own words, because I think that he helps understand, like, why not call it mass formation psychosis or mass psychosis. Mm-hmm. And I like his explanation about it. Pretty good.
So shall we roll that clip?
Let's roll that.
All right, here we go.
You have erupted into the public eye for your work on what is called mass formation. Some will have heard it discussed as mass formation psychosis, but I don't think that's the general term. So what I would like is for you to describe the process of mass formation and what it has to do with certain patterns of history that everybody who watches this will already be familiar with, even if they don't realize that they are in fact patterns.
Yes, indeed. I never use the term mass formation psychosis because I think both from an intellectual and an ethical point of view, and even a strategical point of view, it is better to use the term mass formation, which is a more neutral term, less stigmatizing, which doesn't enter the domain of individual psychodiagnostics and so on. So I prefer the term mass formation.
Excellent. I think that's right. The one downside to it is that it does not immediately call anything to mind for most people. Psychosis obviously does, but I agree with you. Psychosis is prejudicial and counterproductive.
Mass formation is It's a specific kind of group formation, which has very specific effects at the level of individual mental functioning. For instance, if people are in the grip of a process of mass formation, they tend to become radically blind for everything that goes against the narrative the group believes in. It is as if they don't have any capacity anymore to take a critical distance of what the group believes in. And this holds even for people who are extremely intelligent and highly educated. So that's one of the strangest things of mass formation. Even the higher the level of education, it has been observed time and time again, the more vulnerable people become for mass formation, which is quite strange, of course. Then a second characteristic, a very important characteristic of mass formation, is that as people are in the grip of it, they typically become willing to self-sacrifice. It is as if they are no longer aware of their own individual interests, as if they are willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of the collective interests, and to a very extreme extent. And the third crucial phenomenological characteristic of mass formation is that people who are in the grip of it typically become radically intolerant for dissonant voices. And in the end, this goes quite far. In the end, people who are in the grip of mass formation typically start to commit cruelties and atrocities towards the people that do not go along with the masses. And even more specific, they do so as if it is an ethical duty to do so. That's typical for masses of all times, whether we are talking about the Crusades or the witch hunts or the French Revolution or the emergence of the masses in the Soviet Union or in Nazi Germany. Every time you see the same characteristic. After a while, when the mass formation becomes very deep, people typically start to commit cruelties towards those who do not go along with them, and they do so as if it is an ethical duty. To give only one example, 2 months ago, I was talking with this woman of Iran, and this conversation is available on the internet, who lived in Iran during the revolution in 1979, which was the beginning of a large-scale process of mass formation in Iran. And she described how she had seen with her own eyes how a mother reported her son to the state, and how she hung the rope around his neck when he was on the scaffold, and how she claimed to be a heroine for doing so. That's a process that the typical end point of mass formation is that in a strange way, people are willing to commit cruelties towards everyone who doesn't go along with the masses, and they do so as if it is an ethical duty to do so.
As if it is an ethical duty to do so.
Yeah, that is profound right there. So that's the extreme version of being around this experience now, because I think that mass formation was way less happening during the Cold War, during the rise from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and like I think that there was a lot more of the appreciation of the individual back then. I think there was a lot less of that, but I think there will always be some forms of this going on. If there's indoctrination camps, so-called government schools, which are colloquially called public school here, I think there's always going to be the training ground is going to happen in this. But yeah, I think that he covers some of the nastiest aspects of that right away. A woman actually thinking that she's doing an awesome thing by hanging her son. I mean, I really like that hit me really hard emotionally, because I'm thinking that's the exact opposite of what the nurturing, healthy mother would want to ever do. That's like the complete opposite of anything that would be healthy. And when someone would, see this could be like, again, food for someone becoming pessimistic. Oh, look at this world filled with mass formations, like that. These people ready to commit these atrocities. The cruelty that is as if it's a duty, and the menticide, the destruction of their own way of thinking, the self-sacrifice, and not even recognizing it. And I think it's important to see that if this is going on, there's ways around this for sure. That's why we certainly amassed a bunch of solution. But Nick, what did you think? I mean, was that like enough, or do people need to touch on more of how awful this is? Because that was
I
another
think
clip that we had.
that clip definitely gets it across for sure, particularly that
Yeah.
story at the end. It just speaks to the level of inversion that can take place, that can have people doing things that are completely counter to what is their nature. You know, it's an inversion of human nature. We by nature are very kind and cooperative, and we like to help each other, and we like to be helped, and we like to give and receive all this wonderful encouragement and show generosity, to particularly to our family members. And I think that's why that story is so powerful, because it's a mother doing that to her son. So it does a good enough job, I think, of painting what we're up against and what's going on. And I think yeah, we could probably move straight on to solutions at this point.
Yeah. So the way I loved looking at this is like, well, I'll take each of the ingredients of mass formation, which is isolation, pointlessness, and meaninglessness, free-floating anxiety, and free-floating frustration and aggression, and just go for it. You know, like here's what I would do for each of those. And for the isolation part, the first tab that I had pulled up was the freedom cells, freedomcells.org, which was an is an excellent way of finding out, you know, even here on this rural big island of Hawaii, I found a local freedom cell of different people that I didn't even know. And it's amazing how many people are out there who are building community and connecting with each other, doing business with each other, sometimes even, you know, finding lifelong friendships or deep, meaningful relationships with each other. And that's, I don't even know how many years going on out there. For folks who can just go ahead and click on the raise your hand thing on the Zoom here, who here has experienced a freedom cell? Who here is like already like engaged in that? You know, let's go ahead and any of you guys? You guys touched on that one? There's Jerry says, yeah, you know, so there's that.
While people are sort of deciding whether to come off mute and contribute, I would say please do feel free. I'll tell my own story. When we were about a year into lockdowns, I got onto the Freedom Cells website, and there was one already existing for my town. There was 2 or 3 people in it. I joined, I got in touch with them, and then over the course of sort of maybe 3 or 4 months, we grew to 12 people, and we were meeting regularly, and we were just talking about what was going on and different avenues of research and understanding, and that we were all exploring, and we were just trying to make sense of things together. But being able to come to that group and share stories and be heard, and to be heard by people who were seeing the same sort of things unfolding as I was, and being very suspicious and asking a lot of questions and being very incredulous about the mainstream narrative, it was really a complete lifesaver. It kept me sane, it kept me focused, it kept me productive, and it helped keep me optimistic, which is the whole point of finding your tribe and finding people you can connect with, finding people who share your understanding of reality and understanding of history and understanding of what it means to be a human and to have this experience. It is absolutely critical to maintain a good sense of optimism and positivity.
I agree. Yeah, and it's isolation is one of those, what was that called, like cruel and unusual punishments that, you know, people being put in solitary isolation in prison, and that's because that one would be enough to do in a lot of people's mental emotional skill sets. They're not ready to handle that kind of thing. Like they, like even amidst like the other prisoners, they'd rather be out there in the midst of the danger and potential obstacles of other prisoners rather than being isolated. It's about that much of an intense thing. So yeah, I was happy to see the freedom cells out there. I mean, I'm psyched that like before I even tapped into that one, I know enough people on island. This is my almost I'm approaching the 15th year of being on this island. So I'm really, you know, getting plugged into more and more people, leveling things up that way. But I remember when I first started, I really could have used something like Freedom Cells. And that I looked around and I found that the Beartaria Times, this Beartaria Times app, was a way of people connecting with each other. I thought that that was pretty cool to look at. That it's not something I've tapped fully into yet, but I've already connected some of my friends and clients to this one because it has like a lot of uplifting resources for each other, like where people are actually like putting their businesses out there with each other, having events scheduled, and these are I like the whole name of it because like obviously hearkening to Tartaria, there's one of those alternative research topics that is so contested and yet still touching on, oh, that's interesting. And this one I believe it originated with the comedian Owen Benjamin, who's out there from I think and his voice is definitely changing, but he's definitely promoting people to connect together with people with like minds, to focus on self-sufficiency and building a mutual network of people who really get things done. Have you taken any time to look at this one, Nick, or this? I know it's a new one for you.
It is new for me. Yeah, I haven't spent much time here, but just giving a cursory glance over the topics they have, it looks like a very good resource. Particularly, there's a tab here, business, with some articles, scale or fail, morality over money, and one down here, price versus value. So actually, these topics sound very much in line to the kind of things and the concepts that we're learning and studying and practicing here in autonomy, which is there are more important things than that dollar. There's more important things than just doing whatever it takes to get those ones and zeros, into the bank account. I think just a cursory glance on the website suggests that these guys and their operation and what they're doing, they're coming from a good place.
Right on. Yeah, and I think that all of these take some time to like go into, but the idea that you're not alone, I think that's the main component, that none of us are really alone with these ideas of saying, like, I'm committed to optimism, or I'm committed to keeping my mind and my heart open and moving and having, like moving forward, like what you mentioned, like I'm having a soul mission. And yeah, that doesn't, like we'll get to that one in two with having a sense of meaning and purpose to one's life, that second problem. But I definitely found it was a really cool. I just started listening to the show on rebunked.news from the owner of unjected.com, and that was neat to see an entire dating site that is devoted to connecting people who just they want to date with people who aren't vaccinated. They got that pure strain human blood that's not genetically altered, and that's pretty amazing. And I know that the owner of the site has like collected all of these hit pieces on her and her site, because obviously they got bumped off of the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, of like, just in terms of not having their app like accepted there, and because they're being criticized as spreading misinformation. But here's the niche of people who think in a like-minded way, that that's and I think it's really interesting to see all these communities build around what people want more of and less of. And I think that I'd be, this is quite a growing niche of people who really wants to connect with people who see on the same wavelength. Because I understand, like,
to me, because I feel like it's interesting that the owner is getting some grief or some flack, and I suppose, but it's the one directional nature of it. Like, it's okay to prevent you from accessing a building, or from doing a specific job, or from leaving or entering a country on the grounds of your injection status. But it's not okay to date on the grounds of your injection status. So we've got to shut down this horrible person and make sure we slander her character and remove this app from the App Store. So it's that hypocritical, nonsensical, illogical nature of the issue, which I think effort like this really highlights. And I haven't heard the interview with the person who came up with this, but I would like to definitely to catch up and get up to speed with that, because it's a courageous thing, and I think it's a very valuable and important service. And during these times, we, like you mentioned, we've got to find the people who see see things the way we see them, and who have the same values as we have. And if bodily autonomy and deciding what does and does not go inside your body is extremely important, that is definitely something worth sharing with the people who you spend your time with, particularly if you're going to be dating and building a life together.
Exactly. And as a newly single man, I'll tell you all about how unjected works for me soon as I actually see it do something. But for right now, I'm mostly interested in connecting with new friends and new people around the world. And then certainly I love meeting them here on island and seeing where that goes. I'm psyched that I still get invited to parties. Like I'll be going to one tomorrow. To meet people in real life is really wonderful. And the majority of people I know at the party tomorrow are going to be not injected. They'll be unjected people there. That's the kind of crowd that I tend to roll with right now. I think it's really good to know that, no matter what the situation, we're not alone, but there are ways that we could make ourselves alone. And I think that there's, certainly whatever it is that we put into our mind, this constant stories, these affirmations, those are the things that really move the ball forward as far as what in reality are we creating for ourselves every day. So if we think that we are alone, that's an affirmation right there. And I would suggest to switch that affirmation to say, hey, that's an affirmation of lack and of creating probably a reality that you don't really necessarily want anymore. But it is coming from a hurt little kid inside of you that would want to say, I'm abandoned, And as one of my mentors has told me, if you're an adult, the only person who could abandon you is yourself. You're in charge of yourself now. But the little child inside of you could feel like an event that's happening now is similar to an event in the past, and therefore you're being isolated. Like, as I had a friend where all of his friends went away from him. That was his perspective, because again, he just chose the wrong friend group and he wasn't actually out looking for new friends. All of his friends chose to believe in the story of his soon to be ex-wife, who, ran away with his child and made it a very challenging situation for him and thousands of dollars and 8 months of court work to get to be reunited with his daughter. And who he now has almost full time at this point. But in the process of that, he found all these other people believed her side of the story without ever asking or seeking any evidence otherwise. And that was basically like feeling isolated, where like all the friends he thought he had no longer friends.
This reminds me of the saying, to assume makes an ass of you and me. And I think, if you're assuming that people see things a certain way or have a certain set of values without putting that to the test, but with a conversation, by asking a question and using that all important question mark, then that can end in tragedy. But I just wanted to mention, Darrell, we got a hand up in the audience. We got Van. Van, did you want to chime in and ask a question or make a comment?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to offer an alternative point of view or perspective on dating apps, right? So in this age, so I have actually found that it's amazing, this whole debate that seems to separate people about, the injection status, because this is the fastest way to weed out, when you're dating, there's a sense of overwhelm, and it's, isolating the people that you want to get to and get to know as quickly as possible in the least amount of effort and time. And the best way to do that is to make it abundantly clear on your profile that you're not interested in anyone that's had, if this is your point of view, if this is what you're looking like. For me, I'm not interested in anyone who's vaccinated, right? For various reasons. Like if they've been influenced and they can't think for themselves and they've taken the injection and for health reasons, everything. I don't want to be associated with that. So So that's a massive opportunity for you right there. So I'm just putting that out there for anyone who is dating, and it does work because you get lots of people attracting. You literally attract people that they come out and they say like, yeah, your profile is different, blah blah blah. Okay, cool.
Man, that's really useful. I'm going to keep that one in mind. And I do want to mention that there's two organizations that I got involved with, I don't know, at this point around 6 years ago. And the main one is the Mankind Project, and you can find that one mkpusa.org. And this is a worldwide organization with what I'm going to have to unfortunately say is horrible marketing aspects, because although they have amazing skills and trainings opportunities to bring men through a hero's journey, the actual, like a version of a hero's journey that takes 26 hours long, obviously with some break for sleep and eating and such, is an amazing opportunity for men around the world, and has been going for, at this point, around 35 years approximately. And in that training, that 26-hour training, which I went through back in 2015, I am one of around probably less than 80,000 men across the earth who've been through this training. So here you have like 30 plus years and only like that many people going through the training. How many people have been through autonomy so far? In how many years?
500 or 600, I think.
Right. Okay. So, but this is just beginning, and this Mankind Project is in 18 different countries, for perspective right now. So there's all these other countries, and it's in every state of the United States. It started in Wisconsin. So to deliver to men a way to find your own personal mission statement. This is where I learned to not be a poor missionless bastard. I learned to find, like, what is my mission statement here? That's part of the trainings that they offer. That New Warrior Training Adventure is well worth it, and it is an amazing opportunity, and it's over where you are too, Nick. It's, you know, it's in a lot of different countries. Problem is, World War COVID happened, and a lot of the men who are in leadership decided to shut things down and not allow them to happen. But now they're starting to be opened up again. You can see the 2023 schedule, and you can see the pricing of them is very doable. It was all under $1,000 for an amazing and profound training. Frequently, you know, $750 or so. And I can't recommend it enough for someone who's, I know if you've been through a lot of mental emotional training, as I have, then you'd go through this experience and you'd be like, I see what you did there, you know. And just to be clear, this is a way of getting emotional literacy for men who don't have as much of that, for people to have a mission statement so they move forward in their own life, that's given to you, but one that you build on your own in an organic process. If you were just given a mission statement, that means you're in a cult. But if you were going through a therapeutic process where you discover your own mission statement, that means you're in a training. And this
sounds like a very important distinction to make as well. And to me, it sounds like a kind of rite of passage. I think it's one of the things that we've talked about before, but particularly I've talked with a few people in autonomy, is that our culture nowadays, it doesn't really have a rite of passage, no event to mark that transition from adolescence into adulthood, no ordeal to undergo or challenge to conquer or to face. And so what happens is you kind of end up with a lot of people who look like adults and they're old enough to be adults, but on the inside, psychologically, they may not be adults in any way. And with that, we got another hand up, and it's Bob Podolsky. Bob, how's it going? Thanks for being here. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I do. I have a comment. I also got really interested in Matthias Desmet's work, and I highly esteem his analysis of the causes that set people up for mass formation. He also does talk about it in some settings as mass hypnosis. And that got me thinking, because when he's asked, what should we do about this? I'll paraphrase his answer. He says something like, speak up, speak out, speak truth to power. And I think that's a rather lame response, frankly. And the reason I think that is because to the extent that mass formation is a hypnotic phenomenon, it operates directly on the subconscious. And if you're going to have something that offsets it or reverses it, you better be operating at the same subconscious level. So my response was to design an antidote. And I have people out there experimenting with my antidote. It's a 15-minute audio recording. You sit back or you lie down, you close your eyes, and you listen to this thing for 15 minutes from time to time. And it changes your susceptibility. You become less susceptible to mass formation. And I just started experimentally putting this out for some people, particularly in autonomy, and people love it. The people who are experimenting with it really like it a lot. I am planning on making improvements in it. This was just the first draft, and already I'm getting good results. It's basically a little storytelling that I do. I tell some stories, and if you hear them with your subconscious, and of course, if you're relaxed and your eyes are closed, you're going to hear it with your subconscious. I suggest to people, don't even try to understand it with your conscious mind, because it's really a message for your subconscious mind. But I've been doing hypnosis since 1974. It's a field in which I have some skills. And I'm really excited about presenting the antidote as a way for people to resist the effects of mass formation. So if anyone is interested in participating in this grand experiment, you can send me an email. I'll give you my email address. It's info@civilizationdoneright.com. And I just put antidote or antidote experiment in the subject line, and I'll connect with you and give you a chance to experience the antidote for yourself. I will ask you for feedback in very specific ways, because I'm trying to assess exactly what the effects of this antidote are. I suspect they go way beyond simply counteracting mass formation. I think that you'll find there's a bunch of other consequences can happen spontaneously once you hear this thing. So that's my comment on mass formation.
Bob, I emailed you. I took you up on this offer, and I sent you an email, and I got the recording through to my inbox. And I've listened to it a number of times now in the evening when I'm lying down in the dark and I'm going to sleep. Because I have the habit of putting on a podcast or listening to some sort of content as I sleep or as I'm falling to sleep. And speaking of black-pilled and pessimism, I might pick something that's truth-based or that's kind of highlighting the horrors and the scary shit show of reality that is unfolding out there. And this was an antidote. It was soothing, it was calming, it was relaxing. Your tone and delivery were exceptionally comforting. And I don't think I've made it to the end without falling asleep yet. But hopefully that's not going to interfere with the effect, but I can definitely vouch for the recording, and I've certainly been enjoyed using it, and I'm going to carry on using it.
Thank you. I have a question for you, which is the first question that I ask people who've listened to it. And that is, how many stories do you remember hearing?
I want to say 3. 3 is the number that comes to mind. I think that's 3 in there.
I see. Okay. Well, the reality is most people remember the first, and they remember bits and pieces of the second.
Mm-hmm.
And only one person has gone beyond that. There are actually 4 stories.
Oh, that's 4. Okay.
And that's intentional, because I don't want the conscious mind interfering in what the subconscious mind is doing with the information.
Right.
So I put all of the most important suggestions in the 4th story. So I'm pleased to hear that you don't remember hearing the 4th story, maybe not even the 3rd. To me, that means you were listening with your subconscious. And to some degree, it's working.
And to be clear, I only say 3. It's just the number that popped into my head. If I had to tell you those 3 stories, I don't think I could. I remember something about camels, and I'll just leave it at
Yeah,
that.
the camel race.
The camel race, yeah. And that story in and of itself is worth listening to the recording, because that's a really good one.
All right. Thank you so much for that feedback.
That was brilliant. And I look forward to listening to the recording and giving you my own feedback soon, Bob.
All right.
And yeah.
Did you
um,
receive it? I did send it to you.
Yes, I have it. Yes.
Okay,
That's true.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I look
And
forward to your feedback.
yeah, thank you. I just want to juxtapose or compare that when I offered the resources of the Mankind Project, mkpusa.org, and as someone who's been through it, I'm able to find anyone, an actual group of men, probably in your state or in some cases other countries, that meet on the regular, that we call them integration groups or I groups. But it's not just for men. There's also womanwithin.org. And that's a way of the same thing for women who would love to just connect with other women and find ways to, again, level themselves up. They go through their own weekend training and other online trainings. I think that actually in some ways that Women Within as an organization was more courageous and didn't shut down as much during World War COVID. During World War COVID, they kept themselves open and were really trying to continue the trainings. I think it's really important. Now, I'm not trying to segregate men and women apart. I'm just saying that there are opportunities that happen when meeting like only with members of your own sex that create for many people a story of safety that creates a way of both men and women actually more courageously examining aspects of themselves and assisting each other in a situation where they feel really safe to do so. I have sat in groups where the same methodology was done in a co-ed group with men and women together using similar methodology. Very rewarding, very courageous. I love that kind of thing too. And what I love about all that is that's not isolating. To sit in a group of men or women or men and women and actually like be real, to check in on your feelings like I do in my course, Mental Emotional Kung Fu. We check in how you're really feeling, what's really going on, and then go through the entire course, and then at the end checking out, how do you feel now? What do you have now going on? That's a real deal kind of way that like is the opposite of isolation. So even on Zoom like this, as we all notice, just to be real with each other and ourselves, to step into courage is amazing. And yeah, I think that's pretty good for isolation. I think we can move to our second theme, Nick.
Absolutely, yeah. So lots of good solutions there, and I think the key thing is to reach out and talk to people and maintain those relationships with people who you vibe with and who you resonate with. And I know that might be sort of woo-woo term to some people out there, but you get a feeling about people's energy and people's vibe and people's sort of the energy, the atmosphere they give off, and tune into that. Trust your intuition and find those people who lift you up and can create a space for you when you're down, and don't judge you and don't try and force anything on you. They just will accept you, whatever you bring to the table. But I will say one thing that I've particularly noticed in this most recent season of Autonomy. In previous seasons, I overcommitted to meetings, and then I would cancel last minute, and I was pretty much out of integrity. And this season, I've really stepped up, and I've really done my absolute best to never cancel anything I've committed to, and to show up on time and to be there. And if I do have to change it, then I rearrange it, right? And what I've noticed is every single time, even when I don't want to show up and I don't feel like going to a meeting, every single time that I've left the meeting better off, feeling glad that I showed up and glad that I went to do the thing, even if beforehand I was trying to talk myself out of it and make excuses. So when you find yourself in that kind of situation, that's when the isolation disappears, when you know there are people who lift you up and who, after going backwards and forwards with them, leave you feeling better off than you did beforehand. That's when you found your tribe, and that's really what you got to keep looking for. And if you don't have that yet, you got to meet more people, find ways to meet more people until you find them.
Brilliant. And so now I want to step into creating a higher sense of purpose and meaning in one's life. And that's a pretty deep idea, since I think one of the obstacles that go on for a lot of people is the way that the people make money. Too many people. When I ask a lot of people, how do you feel about that? Does it really deliver a sense of meaning and purpose to your life about what you're doing? There's people that you're spending time with. And, you know, again, like that idea that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And for a lot of people, those 5 people are at work, you know, because they're spending like a big majority of their time with people at a job. That's the way they pull in the money, the big money, rather. That's the way they actually, you know, take that money and turn that into a car payment, a house payment, like something like that. And then, but like, does it really add to meaning and purpose to one's life? And I know what it's like, certainly, to have a job that is deficient on the meaning and purpose, like qualities, because I've done those jobs. And I also know the power of sitting in a job where I love doing what I do. I love writing a healthcare recommendations report for a client and actually coming up with solutions to their problems, and then checking in to see how did that work with them. And if it worked really well, then, you know, collecting a testimonial and adding to my repertoire. I love doing the one-on-one integration work that is mental emotional kung fu, where I really get to walk someone through some way to get to their win. That a lot more counseling work that I'm doing now. And those are points of personal meaning and purpose. But yeah, I think it really helps to know, like, what is this soul mission that you'd have, and how do you build a soul mission? I was taught to build that by first understanding, like, to go on some type of guided journey that helps you understand the world that you want to see happen, that you really get to see in your mind's eye, what does this world look like? What is it? What are the, and you need to say this in the positive. Like, I want a world without war. It's like, no, you're going to need to say with peace. You're going to need to say it all, each of the positive ways of thinking, right? This is one of those, I think, it's a bad lesson that people have like internalized, is to, when I ask people what they want, they'll say, I want the pain to go away, you know, for example, instead of to say, I want to feel powerful and comfortable. You know, I want to like feel all my senses, my physical senses, my energetic senses, my awareness, and everything to be like expanded and powerful. And that's saying it in the positive. So the world that you want to make, and the step 2 is the actions that you're taking now and you're going to take soon to make that world happen. So that way, my mission is, I make a world of increasing abundance and decreasing scarcity by improving my own and other people's mental, emotional, physical, and financial health. And that's me living with my mission. And at the same time, I also have a shadow mission, one that I grew to have a long time ago. And that's making a world of fear, anxiety, and confusion by spreading hatred and division and wishing the worst for people. And that's my shadow mission that I'm aware if what I'm thinking is what I'm doing in alignment with my mission or my shadow mission. Did you ever come across something like a shadow mission for yourself, Nick?
Actually, I did, but it was a little different to what you just described. What I did, I went through the self-authoring suite, which is a Jordan B. Peterson product. And it's a writing exercise where you reflect on the past and you look at the present, your good qualities and your bad qualities. And then finally, you plan a future. But the interesting part of it was you don't just plan one future, you plan 2. Future 1 or future A is going to be, if everything goes well for me, if I pull my socks off and get to work and really capitalize on my skills and talents and abilities and aptitudes, and the best possible outcome is achieved, what does that look like? That's future A. Future B is the opposite, the inverse, or the shadow future, I think you might call it. And this is where we say, okay, what if my bad habits and my failings and my weaknesses, what if they take over and lead me into a future? What would that look like? And the idea is that we put future A in front of us and strive towards it, and see that as something we want to achieve, and align our actions, as you just mentioned, behind getting that outcome. But we put future B, the shadow one, kind of behind us, and we want to be moving away from that. We want to be doing the things that get us further away from that and reduce the chances and likelihood of that future manifesting. So I've done a similar exercise, and it was pretty powerful. I really thought it was a valuable way to think about the future. And I'll just say we've got another hand up again. This is a really polite audience. Van, you got a comment or a question?
Yeah, I'm hearing myself here. Sorry about that. All this talk about meaning and purpose is really I don't know if serendipitous or synchronous, but yesterday I came across a website, and it's the concept of human design. I don't know if, Darrell, you've heard of that.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm
basically
very familiar.
Oh,
Yes.
beautiful. Okay, great. So I don't have to talk about it, but yeah, I just thought I'd put it out there because it seems to be really useful. You know, you learn about yourself, and you can discover all about your energy type, and you get a report from this website. And you can, and the other thing that I loved about it is, in autonomy, we were learning about it, lead magnets, and this website is, packed with lead magnets, and it's like a mastery of that copyright and lead magnets. I just
What is
put it
the
out there
website,
for
please,
anyone.
Van?
It's myhumandesign.com.
I've got it
And
here.
yeah, I'm a complete novice on it, but the report that you get is like, wow, how do they know me so well? And it's really interesting. So, Darrell, I'd love to hear your take on this.
Okay, well, I got definitely the diagnosis of being a manifesting generator, which is actually just like really detailed astrology charts. This does require that you know your birth date and your birth time and your birth location, and you give that information in there, and then this chart gets filled out. And there are 4 major components that they look through as far as I'm gonna butcher them, but like manifestor, generator, reflector, and the 4th one that I am not quite remembering, but there'd be 4 different types. I know that, I got a professional reading from someone who studied human design for, I don't know, at least 8 to 10 years plus, and it was very accurate and in depth. And there are challenges with dating someone who's similar in the whole manifesting generator kind of thing, like myself. But there they are: manifestor, generator, projector, and reflector. Those are the 4 types. And then there's mixtures of the kinds. And that's a component of what happens. I think it like a good astrological reading or a good tarot reading. There's insight that happens into, okay, these are tendencies, beware of them. Can you see them, how they've already popped up in your life? Usually the answer, if you're honest, is absolutely, for sure, like 100%. And then that's ways of moving forward. And it also helps to understand, I get to connect back to having meaning and purpose to one's life. In other words, that would make sense that given these tendencies, there would be the gravity or the attraction or magnetism towards these activities. Where why is it that I love to be on a podcast and I love to run my mouth so much like this? And that would make sense, because this is that's what I'm living. I'm feeling more alive as I do this. I just really want to make Nick smile. That's my aim in life in general. And to make him have to mute his laugh if I can. The other components of it is like, why do I keep struggling? Where I struggle with not listening to my intuition and pretending that things are going to add up to a good result when they actually don't. Why do I struggle with that one? And there's a different tendency. So this is an opportunity to know oneself, to find meaning and purpose through that lens. And I really appreciate, Van, that you threw human design in there, because I didn't even think of that as a resource, but that is a wonderful resource. I think that, in general, finding meaning and purpose is a journey that requires some experimentation. I've got one more session with a 17-year-old client who has no clear direction in her life on what delivers meaning and purpose to her, but she knows more what she wants more of, because it's what she's been restricted on having, namely autonomy and choice, and freedom, and a greater variety of experiences. She's had a sheltered existence with minimal friends and not nearly enough actually exploration of empowerment and connection. So there's that. And yeah, Bob, I'd love to hear your take on this before we move on.
I have found two questions to be very, very useful, both in my own life and in the lives of people I've counseled. The first question is, what would you set out to do if you knew that you could not fail? Now, it takes some work to dig up the answer to that, but I have found that people can if you keep probing from that point of view. And then once they have an answer, once they have the answer, then the second question becomes, why would you do anything else? I found my purpose in 1973. And I set myself up for it in 71. I found it in 73. And I've been living in accordance with it to the best of my ability ever since. It has not let me down. So I recommend those two questions to people who are seeking their purpose.
Man, that was potent and very relevant to now. I have another thing to say for the client on Monday, because it's really interesting. You never know how long you're going to get to work with someone and help them. And in this case, I have a strong suspicion that this might be the last time for a long time, because the money issues is a frequent thing. That's where people, cut things off. That's for people when it's a professional in the paid life. But when it's in your unpaid life, like a lot of us have a relationship with each other here, where we can just reach out to each other and just see if someone's available to offer perspective, a head check. And this is a valuable resource right here for finding, I personally find that one of the biggest sources of meaning and purpose in my life is helping others. And by finding that I am actually helpful, I find that that's connecting to why I love existing on this plane, why I love to wake up and draw breath every day. There's really a lot to enjoy here. I can sometimes, like anyone, can forget that, hey, I live in Hawaii and I work a limited number of hours to float this existence, and I can actually experience the beauty of this island and place. I can get caught into a focus of I need to write more, I need to manifest more, I need to create more, like I need to do more work. And yeah, it's a head check wherever you are. If you look outside at nature, see that it's beautiful no matter where you are. With I lived for years in Vermont with at this point of the year, it'd be, closing in on 0 degrees and super quiet and snow filled in the woods. And, even just cold enough sometimes that there's not even bird sounds. And that's an amazing type of beauty. You just have to require a certain suit to be able to handle sitting out there with your gear and your cup of tea. And this, same thing for the desert, and the same thing for even here in the jungle where there's fire ants right over there, and that's a thing like that. If you're going to go out there, you're going to need to be able to handle that. So I definitely put that out there, is just to look into nature as another source of meaning and purpose. And I wonder, Do you want to touch on any other components of meaning and purpose before we move on, Nick?
One of just a quote that when you were talking about that last bit was the Lao Tzu quote, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." I think that's a really nice quote to bear in mind when you're having those feelings of, I need to be doing more, I need to be more efficient, I need to pack my schedule with more activity and behaviors, and be, which sometimes we can get into that. And there's, I'm sure, room for improvement for all of us. We could all tighten up our schedule and focus in more on what is the highest and best use of our time. If it's helping people, if it's working on a project, whatever it may be. But at the same time, taking a step back and remembering that nature is getting everything done, and it is all happening out there, and being able to get out and experience it. You know, I'm extremely envious that you have the beach so close to hand, and the jungle, as you said. I did live on an island for 3 months in Malaysia at one point, and I was earning, I think maybe $100 a month and working 6 days a week. But it was one of the best times of my life. Because it was just barefoot every single day, just picking mangoes off the trees to eat, going and playing frisbee at the beach in the shallows of the ocean at sunset every evening after work. And I say work, and I was a snorkeling guide, you know. But that time, it was just powerful and healing and really uplifting to just be able to see the beauty of a sunset on a beach over the sea. The feel of sand between your toes and these kind of things. I think absolutely connecting to those places and situations is because we are designed to live in nature. We're supposed to be part of that whole ecosystem, and sitting alone in our little boxes with our artificial heating systems and our slippers on, as I'm wearing right now because it's kind of chilly here in the UK. That's isolating, you know. And we were talking about ways to avoid isolation. Get out in nature and go and see what animals you can see, and what plants can you see, and what different forms of the weather can you handle and tolerate, and what's the feel of rain on your face, or a cold snap of air going up your nose and cooling down that nasal passage, which I experienced last night when I walked to the shop in the dark. I think it's a really important way to feel alive. And when you're feeling alive, then you feel connected. And when you feel connected, the feeling of isolation leaves.
It's very important to know. And this brings us to that third point of dealing with free-floating anxiety. And just like the pointlessness and meaninglessness can lead to frequently people will get this disempowering diagnosis of depression. And they'll say those words, "I have depression," like it's something that was given to you or that is unexplainable, that just landed on you and you don't know. And whenever anyone says that to me, regarding and usually in my professional life, I try to give them the opportunity to say, what if instead of that as landing on you as a diagnosis that you have depression, what if instead you are sad because you want things that you lost? That's what sadness is. And the same for anxiety. Instead of saying I have anxiety, or I have bipolar disorder, I have manic depressive disorder, I have, you know, these DSM-4 diagnostics, these psychological terms that are description of symptoms, and they're often pointed towards alleged brain chemical imbalances that cause them, that are unknown as their actual origin of that. Like, I push back against that because there's actually a lot of medical literature now that says no, it's not from brain chemical disorders, that those are real feelings. Anxiety and fear, which is naming it real, is fear, but you know, it's another way of calling fear is anxiety, is meaning that there are qualities that you want that you think you're going to lose. There's qualities that you fear to lose that could be going away, such as connection or autonomy or empowerment or safety, security, and especially safety and security for, you know, as a root chakra kind of thing, like I could lose my life, you know, there's that root thing. So first off is to identify, okay, those are real. Like we got, you know, like a real kind of feeling going on, a free floating anxiety. And that was something that really happened during World War COVID, where people were thinking like, there's the virus, where's the virus? You can't see the virus. Now you have free floating anxiety. And they say like, where's the climate change? Where's it going to strike? It's like, well, guess what? You really can't like touch climate change as like a damaging thing that's happening to you. You could pretend that you're touching it, but it's free floating because you can't point to it. So the opposite of that, of course, is to really know what is it that you're afraid of losing, and then finding proactive ways of getting more in touch with those qualities. So if it was safety and security, what are the ways of safety and security and, increasing them? And I loved, like the previous resources that we had, there's all these people in your local freedom cell that we're connecting with them is to have safety and security, because they're going to have services and goods. They're going to, be like the ones producing food. Same thing with Bertaria Times app. They're going to be people who are actually promoting ways of making things work and there to fix problems. That's really important. The people who are there to fix problems, and they're going to do that. And I like to fix medical problems. That's like the niche that I stepped into. And now I'm stepping into the other niche. I like to to help people find solutions to the mental emotional balancing problem, to find the solutions to that, and doing more and more work with that one-on-one. Very rewarding and fun stuff. And I think it's good just to know that anyone here can do this. The Navy SEALs have this cool method called box breathing that I just learned in my men's group over here recently. Box breathing is something that we can all do right now. Got a big thumbs up from JL on this one. Everyone here can do some box breathing where you just go ahead and, if possible, you close your eyes and taking a deep breath, the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, holding it for 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing out for 1, 2, 3, 4, holding it 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing in 2, hold it, breathing out, hold it, and come back to the center when you're ready. So we're not going to do box breathing for the next half hour of the show, but certainly that would be a very relaxed state. I think we might get more done with that than the rest of the words that are coming out of my mouth, possibly. But I just wanted to like
doing box breathing, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of that is a great way to center and calm yourself if you're panicking or if you're anxious. It's I've done it on buses before. I used to have a lot of anxiety when I was teaching English in a former career, and I used to panic each morning, waking up feeling underprepared for my class, wondering if my lesson was going to go okay, if my students would show up, all these different things. And I would sit on the bus and do this kind of breathing to calm myself, to get prepared so I could show up and teach. And invariably, once I was in the lesson and standing in front of the class, everything went fine, because you're there and you've got to do something, and it's kind of like do it live. Once you're up and running, something has to happen. The anxiety kind of dissipates when you're in the thing doing it. But certainly beforehand, in the lead up to it, our minds can drum up and our bodies can drum up all this anxiety and this fear, and box breathing is a really powerful way to handle that.
Yeah. And I think something that you passed off to me, Nick, regarding handling free-floating anxiety was Jay Dyer's course on philosophy. And I haven't taken the time to go through that one yet, but I plan to. Would you be willing to speak to that and how it relates to this issue of dealing with anxiety?
Sure thing. Yes. So so that kind of ticks 2 boxes. I think it deals with pointlessness and meaninglessness, and the anxiety that comes along with feeling like life is pointless and meaningless. And it's such a wonderful course, because the feeling that life might be pointless and meaningless is not unique to this current batch of humans that live here. This has been a problem for humans going back as long as humans have been humans, I would say. And so there is a wealth of thinking and knowledge and books and teaching that go into, well, is it all pointless? Is it all meaningless? Or is there a purpose and is there a reason for this experience that we're having? And this course is designed to give you an overview of that conversation, going back as far as records. We have written records that we have going back to the time of Plato and Aristotle and coming up to the present day. So what it does is it gives you that conversation, allows you to situate yourself within that so that you can see what people who've lived before have come up with to answer this question of, is it pointless? Is it meaningless? Or is there something going on here that we can be aware of and we can figure out using logic and argument and these kind of things? So the content itself is extremely valuable. But then the other thing I would say is that Jay Dyer as a teacher is very much next level in his delivery. He's got a great sense of humor, but he has an impeccable knowledge of what he's talking about. He's spent many years lecturing and debating. He's been through postgraduate academic situations, and he is extremely well read. And so he's just an excellent teacher. And he's put this course together. It's 12 weeks. It's a bunch of different modules, which actually I have the wrong page open for the different modules here. But I think at the minute, the most recent lecture was medieval period. But it's a wonderful resource, and we're very privileged here in Autonomy to have access to this course as it's in development. And I think for people who are grappling with these big questions of why am I here and what am I doing, this is a really good way to start finding answers, I should say.
Good point. Yeah. And I could go ahead and invite you to open up just the header page for my own course, Mental Emotional Kung Fu.
Give me a moment. I'll pull that.
I find that I've been working on building methods of balancing my thoughts and balancing my mind for the past 10 years, basically. I just really putting it all together. Though I did start the study, I guess, in 2009, where I was like discovered the trivia method of critical thinking and discovered how essentially a way of balancing my heart, my feelings with nonviolent communication as a method. And then thanks to the trainings I got on the Mankind Project in the last 6 years, it's very much added to that. So there's really a lot more than just nonviolent communication and the trivia method. I really do focus on walking people through steps to get them to really an empowered state, to get them to where they're able to see that they have, an understanding of why is a thought so connected to certain of the core 4 feelings and what's going on with that, and to try to help connect that to the values, these qualities that are desired, and then from there to take proactive action. And that's very different than the standard method of nonviolent communication. But yeah, there's the graphic I wanted to see there. These are the 4 quadrants, and just walking people through these quadrants. So identifying the real important thoughts, identifying the actual core feelings. Like a printer out there has these 4 colors that make the rainbow. It makes every possible color. Well, people would want to say, oh, there's more feelings than those 4. It's like, well, okay, maybe. But when you're born, these are the ones that are in there. So they're deep in there. They're the ones. Happiness is I've got it. Sadness is I've lost it. Anger is I want it. And fear, afraid, is I'm going to lose it. And the it is that quadrant 3 of the values. This you can flip to that big list of values, Nick, that all these different, almost that one, but there we go. That's going to be fun. All these qualities, and just like to say, like the qualities of aesthetics and playfulness, the qualities of autonomy and choice, qualities of physical well-being, and the qualities of integrity and accountability, connection, harmony, and purpose and meaning. And with these, there's a way of just saying, okay, so if you're deficient in any of these, if you've lost something here, if you want something and you don't have it, if you are going to lose something because it's so shaky, your connection to it, then what can you do in that fourth quadrant? You know, just to go back there, like, what can you do to take proactive action to get there? And traditionally, then the NVC methods that I got taught originally, it was to ask someone else for help. And that's cool if you're a little kid, you know, but if you're always asking someone for help, that's exactly very appropriate for age 7, 8, 9, etc. But at some point, it's good to teach the little ones, and especially to teach adults, to say, what can you do now or soon to really get more of those qualities lifted up? And once I walk people through that, then they usually get the idea. Then, okay, that's one component of mental emotional kung fu. There's obviously a lot of other tricks to it. I think that here in anxiety, it's very important to understand the diet is a big deal about it too. So obviously, a lot of people, when they hear me say the diet's very important, y'all are going to be thinking, oh, diet of the food and the drink and things like that, but also the diet of the media that you consume. You know, the actual the number of videos and podcasts and the quality of it, the diet of music that you're consuming, and that does include, like, is this the 440 hertz version of the A note, or is this the 432 hertz version of A? That they have different impacts on one, and the type of music, the type of lyrics that you're consuming on the regular, these parts of your diet. So that's all I wanted to mention before we pass it off to you, John. I really want to hear your thoughts on this one.
I'm sorry, I just have a question on what is nonviolent communication? How's that different from the way we talk every day? I heard you mention that just before you got to this. So could you talk about that a little?
Yeah. Nonviolent Communication is a book by Marshall Rosenberg, and speaks to a methodology that I just sort of described part of it, which was to identify the observations, the feelings, the needs, and the requests that are made by a person. It's different than the graphic that I showed, where I focus upon the observations, as well as those are the major thoughts plus the 5 senses, the 4 core feelings, as I prefer to focus in on 4 of them, the values, I prefer to call it that, and then from there, the actual actions and strategies that are taken, which could include a request of someone. And that's half of what is in this book in front of you, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. It's a methodology that Marshall Rosenberg, a student of Carl Rogers, happened to put together. You can also look up at the work of his teacher, Carl Rogers, and the Unconditional Positive Regard, and Carl Rogers' 19 Points of Empathy. But these are it's a good set of information where you could learn about how to potentially communicate in a more effective way. And what is violent about people is that when the people are making demands on other people, and when people are making unrequested diagnoses of other people, like if I just suddenly called, who is this old guy John who's raised his hand and wants to speak here? Old guy, there's an unrequested diagnosis, right? And you didn't ask for that. And it's like, and how come you don't know about NVC and you're here? That should be a required reading. And like, you know, so I could start to go into unrequested diagnosis of you there, and you could start to hear them on yourself. I could speak in deserve-oriented language. Hey, you didn't cover the module here on NVC, nonviolent communication, so you're not doing your autonomy homework. So therefore, you get punished, John. Punishments and rewards, or you did your work and you knew all about it and you spoke eloquently here in the Do It Live, so you get a reward. You know, you get a free session with me, John. And then there's, of course, the denial of responsibility. You called me out on saying NVC but not, and nonviolent communication, but not explaining myself properly. Thank you for that. But instead, I could choose to get angry and say, you know, I have to yell at you and publicly humiliate you here in the Do It Live. And that is because I'm not in control of, I take no responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings, my words, and my actions. So that's a way of consistently, their demands, unrequested diagnoses, deserve-oriented language, and denial of responsibility are 4 ways that language has become damaging and tragic. Not violent, it's true, but technically could lead to violence, since people are ready to make that happen. You know, people are ready to make words like them's fighting words, that kind of thing. And that's why, thankfully, in most countries, words are not an invitation for legally being allowed to engage in violence. I'm grateful for that in these civilized places that we all live. But I really appreciate that question. I think we got enough time for number 4. Nick, do you want to introduce it?
Number 4. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I
That's
was on
the
mute
free
there.
floating frustration and aggression. You know,
Absolutely. Free floating frustration and aggression. I think we can all relate to it, but luckily IBM have stepped up once again and provided us with the perfect tool to deal with this very human experience.
yes, this is the keyboard that you can use for the opposite of nonviolent communication. This is and Nick, wasn't it cool that you put these letters into an anagram finder and it found nothing?
Yeah, there was nothing. Nothing came out. There's no way to rearrange these letters into anything else that makes sense or is coherent or correct in English anyway.
Yeah. So frustration and aggression is to limit your keyboard down to these words, you know, like that's it, you know, and caps lock is always on for this keyboard. So just for perspective, fuck you, and enter. That's basically one way of looking at it.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
sorry. I
that-
just have to say
Yeah,
the only
what you-
anagram that did come out was yuck, UFO. It'd be pretty interesting to find out how that phrase could ever be used in a conversation or a sentence. So if anyone out there wants to work that into a little ditty or a conversation or a sentence, then answers on the back of a postcard, please.
Wow. UFO, yuck. That's amazing. But yeah, it just shows the limitation of what happens when the aggression and frustration rises a lot. And that's going to happen for a lot of people. Certainly, I'm going to make the story that, like myself, a lot of you folks have friends and family members who chose a different side regarding World War COVID and the conclusions on whether or not to believe the big government, big media, big pharma, and I would say like widely publicized celebrity takes on those current events at that time. And if someone was in our family was like going on the other side, they were already into that whole idea of self-sacrifice, the radicalized idea of, you know, being against dissident versions of reality, being very committed to cruelty as if it's duty. And that's another, something that Matthias Desmet went over. And this was a very real problem. And I think to some extent right now in this day, this is still a problem. So what I like to always point back is that anger and aggression, frustration is I want it. It means that the person wants something in that third quadrant. They want something and they're not getting it. And if you speak to that something that someone wants, you have a chance to make a bridge of empathy to that person. You have a chance to say, we're on the same page, because someone who's angry and say, okay, I hear that you want me to be vaccinated. I hear that you are concerned about the impact that I have by going out in public, that I could be spreading disease because you want safety and security. Am I getting that right? That it's the safety and security part that at the base of it that you really want. And by doing that, for sure, someone can actually say, yes, that's exactly what I want. Or certainly people are very quick to correct someone and say, no, that's not it at all. I just want you to be obedient. That could be the thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share, that there's an idea that goes on around that when there is free floating anxiety, that was, the fear of losing something, and free floating frustration and aggression. Well, that once again, it comes down to what's being desired. Nick, did you want to add to that one?
The idea that just popped into my head as you were talking was that we can so often feel fearful and anxious and scared when we are perfectly safe. And this is something that I've done before when trying to calm down friends or family who are particularly anxious or struggling. I've tried to point out, look where you are right now. Look around you. You are perfectly safe here in this room with me. Nothing bad is going to happen. Yet our nervous systems can get so out of whack or can be so programmed by this monolith of fear that we get through our screens and our mainstream media channels and newspapers and all these different sources where that comes to us from, that we can be convinced that we're in danger. And then that gets tagged to an invisible thing that we can't see or we can't even be aware of. And so then it builds up and it becomes intolerable. And sometimes it builds up to that point where, like I mentioned my own example earlier, I'd be sitting on the bus going to a job where I was well known and the feedback was good and people liked me and I'd never had any problems. Yet I would be freaking out and having a real struggle just to get myself into that building to do the job that I was, scheduled and being paid to do. So it's unbelievable, really, how that anxiety can bubble up and get a grip on us and manifest itself when we're in perfectly safe situations.
And it's also unbelievable how quickly anxiety can lead towards frustration and aggression against the out group. And I've seen it with all kinds of topics, with those who are convinced that the world is flat and that people who are globe heads are a problem, and people who are convinced that the folks who took the jab and got this experimental injection, that they are part of the problem and then they needed to be hated and they needed to be, punished. Basically, that's that kind of aggression that's right there. It's the same thing. So the caution is to not do these things that the people who've already experienced mass formation are, herding together to try to experience. The possibility then is to see, can there be other options? And again, I taught, for both number 3 and number 4, for anxiety and free floating frustration and aggression, there's always the diet of what are you consuming, and that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's one thing that you're consuming, that you are the actual foods that you're putting into you. What's the impact of that? The liquids that you're putting into you, the media that you're consuming. And I remember you threw a solutions watch at me a while back when we were discussing this, Nick, something from James Corbett. And I thought that was a wonderful piece of diet, is to take in these positive pieces of information like solutions watch. Do you want to speak to that one?
Yeah, this is a series that James Corbett started, and I'll try and pull it up as I'm talking. But he used to do Propaganda Watch, where he would break down particularly egregious pieces of propaganda and talk about them and the effect and what they were trying to communicate. But I think he got tired of pointing this out. And so what he started doing then, he retired his Propaganda Watch and he started the Solutions Watch. And so now what he'll do is he'll feature on each episode some tip or trick or action that people can do that is a solution that will move people away from anger and fear and anxiety and aggression and towards peace and productivity and happiness and safety. Or a sense of safety. And so it's pretty fortuitous, I think, that when I pulled up this page quickly, then the first one I landed on was giving thanks, which is something we also had in our notes. Did you want to speak to that?
Giving thanks and gratitude. Oh yeah, I do, because that's right. That goes to my recipe for optimism. I came upon this recipe with working with one of my clients. It was to start the day, to end the day with really focusing on gratitude, on what, like, making a gratitude list is a very common exercise in a lot of people's morning routine or routines in general, but really like focusing on what is the gratitude. Like, like I can say, wow, once again, another day, and I live in Hawaii and I don't have any pain, and I'm feeling like fluid, like I can move my body. I can do a workout. I have workouts to do. I I just got sent another one from my teacher, video. I have that gratitude, and then I move to the next step, which is patience, and that includes persistence. Like where can I improve my patience? Where am I impatient in my life, and where can I boost up the patience? Which also includes persistence. Where would I want to be a little bit more patient and persistent to move forward on my goals? What are the areas in my life that could use a bit more of that, more patience, more persistence? And finally, humor. Where is it that I'm not seeing the sense of humor in my situation, or in some situation going on, such as, people who would be hating on me for questioning certain medical topics, or people who would want to cancel or censor me in my shows, or things places that I show up. Where can I see the humor of this, and how could I increase that humor? Are there other aspects of humor that I could touch into? And when I increase my gratitude, my patience, and my humor, I find that I automatically now have more optimism. That's my recipe there that I want to leave around that one.
That's really powerful. I think it's certainly an important recipe, and these things as well they are practices, right? It takes effort and time and diligence and to build up to continuously be grateful. But what I would say to speak of gratitude, when you get into the habit, there is literally no end to the things that you can be grateful for. You can just be grateful and really feel it for the smallest things, for the biggest things, for everything in between. Everything you're experiencing can be viewed through this lens of gratitude, where something good is coming out of it. You're learning something, you're growing. Maybe it's a challenge, maybe it's painful and it's a struggle, but there's there's a silver lining. And the practice of gratitude is really focusing on how to find that silver lining, no matter what's going on and what's happening. And we just had a raised hand. John, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I was just going to continue on with the gratitude. I think what gratitude is the antidote to negativity. And just on where to start, at least with my family, we all get together after dinner on Saturday night, and we sit down and say one thing that we're grateful for. And, it could be central heating, that works. And then we say one nice thing about each other. So the point is that to start small, you could just do it once a week. And then ultimately the goal is that if you build it up and you get into that habit, then you might just start to notice somebody doing it and you just spontaneously do, hey, I really like what you did there. I'm grateful for that. And so you can build it that way.
That was awesome. And I want to invite anyone now, because we're coming close to the end where we have to pass off to the next guest autonomy person there soon. Who would want to say like what they're grateful for, or what you enjoyed about today's presentation about optimism and pessimism? And if no one raises their hand, then I'm going to pick on you, JL, because I love the way you summarize things.
Thank you, Darrell. Thank you, Nick. This was excellent. I had taken a couple of notes, and yes, so in seeking and finding meaning and purpose, and giving the opportunity, also what Bob had shared about those two questions of what would you do if you knew that you could not fail, and then what else, why would you do anything else? And I had been asked that many times, and I still have a hard time answering that. I think I have some work to do. But also thank you, Darrell, for sharing a little bit more about yourself as my mastermind leader and facilitator. I enjoyed getting to know you and what you bring to autonomy. It's always enjoyable and always food for thought. And I enjoyed your recipe for creating a list of gratitude, patience, and humor. And thanks for sharing about the box breathing. I had given that to my dear friend when her brother passed this past April from the jibber jab at 52. So it was totally suddenly. And she was able to see him before he passed. And she would call me and say that she'd wake up in the middle of the night in a massive rage, like literally wake up out of a dead sleep in a massive rage. And so I taught her that technique, and I told her to, you know, share it with her mom too. And it really worked. And so she was really grateful. And it's such a simple thing to do, and it really is effective. So thank you. And also, yeah, the consumption list. I love that. You know, what media, what mental, what food, what are you doing? What are you putting in? Excellent. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Ooh, I'm gonna take a screenshot of that. Hold on, keep it there. Yeah, I was like,
The topic
whoa.
of diet as well, and just after I make this comment, I'll hand over to you, Cody, because you got your hand up. But and I've seen it. I just want to let you know that on the topic of diet, when we were planning what we were going to talk about for the show, it occurred to me that I was reflecting on the architecture in my city and how the visual input that we take in is also part of our diet. And I wanted to mention that because I think it's an overlooked part of our diet. People might not think about. We did talk about nature, but that's one of the benefits of being in nature, is being surrounded by the beauty of nature. And we mentioned beaches, but mountains, fields, woods, forests, streams, riversides, all these different places in nature, they tend to be stunning and gorgeous and beautiful. And so making sure we have a good diet of beauty that we get to take in with our eyes, that we get to look at, I think that's also a very important part of our diet. And stay away from these ugly buildings that they're throwing up in our cities, or at least they're throwing up in UK cities. I don't know what it's like over the pond. But Cody, what did you want to jump in and ask a question or make a comment?
Well, I had a big epitaph when Darrell said, think of, something to be grateful for. Simply for me, it's just that I have all this available time.
Cody, we're struggling.
Cody, we can't hear you.
Can you get your microphone nearer to you and maybe shield it from the wind or something?
Is this better?
Slightly. Try again.
How about now?
Still quite a lot of wind though. Are you walking by any chance?
Yeah, I'm gonna walk.
No, nothing's coming through,
We
Cody.
can't really hear you. You have to like speak loud into your microphone.
Or you can
Or
send me a
not.
message and I'll read it out. That's
Yeah,
easier.
yeah.
Testing.
There we
Oh,
go.
yeah, that sounded better.
Say again.
Okay. So I had a bit of an epitaph when you said, thinking of somebody.
Wait, now you got quiet again. Hold on. Nice and loud.
I've heard you say you had an epiphany.
Yes, I had an epiphany. When Darrell said about being grateful for something, I had an epiphany. Just like that my mom gives me all this available time to learn and grow and experiment with my writing without having to worry so much about 40 hours.
I'm sorry, Cody. I really can't make any of that
Cody,
out. Can you,
yeah, I'm
Darrell?
sorry.
Darrell, can you hear it? Can you make it out?
No, I couldn't, because it was like when Darrell said something about gratitude and then just couldn't hear. So Cody, you're gonna have to either like we can say you're gonna I think that might be it. That might be all the time we have, because we're gonna have to give to the next host. Is that true, Nick?
I believe the next event is using this Zoom account. It starts at the top of the hour. So we might have to wrap it up pretty soon. I'll see if Cody can shoot a message through and then I can read it out. Maybe we'll give him a few seconds for that. Jerry's just put his camera on. Have you got a comment?
Yeah, Cody, put on some headphones.
Yeah, that does help.
I just want to give a shout out to Darrell, to you, Darrell, and Nick. You are killing it, my man. And I also want to invite you guys to join the fitness group, which was it's every 2 weeks on Saturday. So 2 weeks from now, come to the fitness group to talk about our fitness goals and how to be more optimistic. And yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, and
Thanks so much, Jerry.
thank you for that reminder, which is part of what we had planned to talk about was fitness and exercise, but that slipped through the cracks, I guess. We had so much prepared, we haven't managed to do it all. But yeah, Jerry, you've got the fitness group going, but that is one of the ways for sure that you can stave off that free floating anxiety and sense of meaningless and purposelessness. Get the endorphins flowing, do something that's challenging, maybe do it outdoors in the cold or the rain or something for an extra level of connection with nature, and really super benefits will come from that. And I've just got a message through from Cody, so I'm going to read out what he said. So he was talking about gratitude, and he says he's grateful for all the time his mum gives him to learn, grow, and experiment with his writing without having to worry about making ends meet. Wonderful. Yes, definitely. Lots of hearts going up in the Zoom call there. Cody, for sure, that is a wonderful situation that you're in. And I'm extremely grateful that you're in autonomy. I think you're the youngest student that I've met. And you've taught me a lot about video editing recently. And you're a wonderful member of our mastermind. So I'm grateful for you. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Darrell, what have you got in terms of closing words? And let's get this thing wrapped up.
Closing words are what I love to say back in when I was going on podcasts and shows in 2020 and 2021, which is to really build a bridge of empathy to people that you can build it to know why are you connected to people, and then to really just optimize that situation with actions, like how can you increase your connection to whoever it is that you want to stay connected to. That the opposite of isolation and the opposite of meaningless and purposelessness, and the opposite of free-floating anxiety and free-floating frustration and aggression is to be connected to people and to have a deeper sense of meaning and to really connect with yourself, hopefully. So be gentle. My final message. And
Awesome. Thank you, Darrell. And I'm going to book the trend and do something a little different for our outro music today. And I hope you don't mind me taking the liberty, but here's a little outro music that I prepared earlier. So please, I hope you all enjoy. Locked down with no relief. I need some new ways to make ends meet. I listen to James and his reports. He's talking to a guy on Grand Theft World. I'm thinking, who is he? Look at that library. It's really something to behold. So I write in a search engine the name of Richard Grove. Turns out he's the man who teaches all about autonomy, a Swiss Army knife for life, and a skeleton key for success. Now I learn from the best. He taught me integrity and freedom. If you're freaking out about the economy and how it's going to impact your gastronomy, maybe it's time you got some autonomy. Now I live a life of abundance. I'm always looking for ways to be of service. I spend my time online helping students gain traction so they can grow in the right direction. It's sweet. One day we'll all meet in a free world.
All right. Wishing you guys a great day. And you know what's coming up next, Nick? What's that event?
What is coming up next? It is Blake Anderson. He's doing his pitch deck integration exercise round 2. So he's practicing pitching for funding for the personal media project, I believe.
I'm sure he's looking for this login to work.
He should still be able to log in, right? Or will it block him because you're using it?
I see
So
John shaking
he-
his head.
I don't think it'll work until you leave, but then maybe he should be able to come in here too. So, yeah.
He doesn't have a login. I'm supposed
Uh-oh.
to start the meeting, but
Yeah,
I
so
just want to.
we probably need to jump. So go ahead and wrap it up,
Okay.
and then we'll make that happen because it's a different meeting.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well, thank you for being here, everyone, and making this another special episode of Do It Live.
Thanks, everyone.
See you all
Nice one,
soon.
Nick.
And Cody.